Camera, her mic, out on the street chasing wrong from right. Eyes like fire burning through the haze. Truth is a weapon, cuts through the maze. Some call her trouble, some call her brave. Digging up secrets they tried to say. The sound. They despise her, they praise her, but she won't slow down. Real deal around town. The truth's her cry, yeah. They whisper in shadows, they curse her name. Afraid of the spotlight she brings to the game. But the grateful ones, they cheer in the dark for the spark she ignites in their weary hearts. Some call her danger, some call her hope. She's the thin line on the tightrope. Oh, real deal around town. She's breaking it down, spinning the wheel, exposing the sound. They despise her, they praise her, but she won't slow down. Real deal around town. The truth's her crown, yeah. Real deal around town. She's breaking it down, spinning the wheel, exposing the sound. They despise her, they praise her, but she won't slow down. Real deal around town. The truth's her crown, yeah. The truth's her crown, yeah.
Well, hi, everybody. I'm finally back. I've been on a little bit of a unintended vacation. Today is January 5th. I am doing a recording this time. I'm not doing a live stream right now because there's a lot to it that I'm going to be going over, and I'm not quite sure which direction we're going to go. I mean, I'm on a free-for-all right now, but I need editing. I need to be able to edit this or stop if I need to. First, I want to tell you what I've been up to. Today's January 5th. It's the afternoon, Monday, January 5th, 2026. We're into a new year, new stuff. And I want to tell you where I've been. I mean, I haven't gone anywhere. I've been sick in bed. On Christmas Eve, I got hit with like a truck with the flu. I was just all of a sudden very sick. And I understand that's how the flu hits. It's sudden. It hits you like you don't know what happened. And that's what happened. And Christmas Day, I spent in the emergency room. So I got a diagnosis. I didn't know what was wrong. I figured, maybe the flu, but I felt like I had pneumonia, which was not the case. Although I'm so congested, I don't know how that happened. But I was tested. I have influenza type A. And that was on Christmas Day. They gave me that diagnosis. The general principle of the flu is it lasts about 5 days. No, that's a lie. That might be the 5 days that you're certain you're going to die. And it's now been what? It's been a couple weeks now, and I'm still not. I am nowhere near the top of my game. I'm just there. You go. So anybody who has had the flu this year, especially, I'm with you. And it's apparently a really bad epidemic this year. I did get a flu shot. I did back in, I think it was August. But as they always tell us, that they can't tell us with 100% certainty that we're going to be able to avoid the flu, even though we get a shot. Sorry, I'm not at my normal desk. So I'm hopefully this pixelation is terrible and I'm not doing this like I normally do. So I'm actually sitting in bed. Okay. I'm not there. That's TMI, but that's why I'm doing it this way. So, some of the videos I owe you, I was just too sick to do them. I'm still getting ready to do them, and if this new bit of information hadn't come up, I would have probably done the. I would have gone through the drop, the ethics commission drop that I have, that I just haven't been able to get out to you. I've had that since days before, probably a week before Christmas or even longer. I don't know. But I had it. I was getting it ready to go and getting it organized and knowing how I was going to present it to you. And then I got sick. And now just the other day, I found out just, I find these things by accident. It's complete accident when I find things. But I noticed that there's a lawsuit against Chaz. So regarding the reason he lost his job, not the job in Townsend, although that's all part of it, but the job that he has had, he lost his professional license, and God knows what he's been doing for a living, but hopefully he's not dealing with people. And that will be abundantly clear. But so the victims of his bad behavior have now filed a federal lawsuit. There's at least 3 people. Right now there's 3. They're all John Doe. They're not all named Doe. They're protecting their identities, which they're allowed to do, to keep it, because it's sexual inappropriate stuff. So they're victims of sex stuff. So they're protecting the victims' names at least at this stage. I don't know if that sticks, but it probably should. And I have to tell you, I mean, I fell upon it, and I had to go online and figure out how to download all these documents, and I'm quite impressed, or disgusted, more than I was a year and a half ago. I have to tell you, this is really much more. Last year when I first broke this story, it was disgusting. I was, oh my God, is this real? It was real. But now I apparently didn't do a good enough public records request. Back in the day, I asked for the record. I asked for the report on his licensure loss. And I thought I asked for, doing public records requests, you have to really think, what am I asking for? Because you can ask for to make it too broad, you can make it too specific, and you can be missing the point. And whoever's fulfilling your request has to look at it as well and study it and decide, I don't want to give them more than they're asking for, but I want to make sure I give them what they're asking for. And when they're the holder of the records, they know what's there, and they also know what you asked for. And in my case, I didn't ask for enough. I asked for the report on his loss of his professional license. I didn't ask for the investigation into the complaints filed with his employer which was a full DPH investigation. And I didn't ask for that because I wasn't even thinking of that. Because I went in at this completely as I realized that he had his license suspended and I wanted that report. So that's all I asked for. And I got a lot. I was surprised that I got what I got. And actually, when I think about what was in my mind a year and a half ago, and I was thinking that the true investigation may have been more private than it actually is. So during my review of the documents for the lawsuit, I discovered, because in the lawsuit, the filings includes the full investigation of what went on at his place of employment, which was the Crozier House, which is part of Catholic Charities in Worcester. And that is the deep pocket, believe it or not, the deep pockets that the lawsuit is targeting. But Chaz is listed as a defendant. He doesn't have deep pockets, but the defendants are going after all the defendants as well as Crozier House in Catholic Charities. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I don't know. I really don't know. It's nasty. It's very nasty. But anyway, in the filing is the full investigation with all its terrible statements. I don't even know if YouTube is going to allow me to read some of it when I get to that, because YouTube has censorship. They do censor some of the things that people might say, and particularly when you get into sexually inappropriate things. I have to go slowly when I'm going through the investigation because I may not be able to speak some of the words. I may have to come up with different words to describe what's on the screen. You can read, you'll be able to read it, it'll be up, but I may not be able to say the words. YouTube has these flags that fly. I am not monetized, so I may not have a problem saying all the words. I know that for the bigger YouTube channels who are all monetized, they have a real problem because YouTube will demonetize the video that they're doing because of the words, because of certain words that are said, because they don't like that. Advertisers don't like that. But I don't have that. I mean, I'm sure that if you're not a premium member, you are suffering through some advertising as you watch my videos. If you get a premium subscription, and I don't get any money from it or anything, but I have a premium subscription to YouTube because the ads suck. It's a pain to watch long videos, and you have to be ready to skip past the advertising or just wait for it to go through. So premium membership you can get. I get my premium membership through Verizon Mobile, and it's discounted. I think I'm only paying $8 something, maybe $9 a month for YouTube Premium. But that's an unpaid advertisement that I'm providing for YouTube. You'll enjoy YouTube a lot better if you're a premium member. That has nothing to do with me, my videos, or my account. That's strictly something that you get. I'm not, as I said, I'm not monetized, so I get no money, no matter what kind of account you have. And I cannot sell memberships to my channel because I'm not monetized. And so if there's any rumors out there, which I know they're out there, that I'm making money off this, I'm not. I'm spending money in order to get the word out to you, just to let you know. Just the platform that I'm using, I didn't put my thing up, I'm actually paying over $400 a year in order to make these videos. Yeah. Plus other stuff. So I'm paying money. I'm not making any money. And I'm not even playing games with my wording. I am not making a nickel. Not a penny. Not even a penny. So anyway, back to the topic at hand. So the first thing I'm going to do today is go through the lawsuit. That's the filing, the lawsuit. Then it's another file to go through the investigation and there's another file. Some of this is just miscellaneous, so I might not go through every single page of every single document. because some of it is just, who cares? But I know we want everything, and there's enough here, believe me. But the bottom line here is, if this kind of topic bothers you, you might, I don't know, you might not want to watch it. I think that's the benefit of me not doing this as live. You can pause this video and come back to it later and watch it some more if it's really disturbing. It is disturbing material, I want you to know. And so I'm not doing it live because I may need to take more breaks. And doing it live, it just messes things up. I can pause the recording as I'm doing it. So, because as I said, I'm still not feeling that great and I'm taking it easy. So, anyway, I'm going to go through the basic, the lawsuit filing. And just before before I really get going, I want to, some of you might not know what the hell I'm talking about. So, there's this guy, Chaz Sexton Duranian. His full name is Charles Sexton Duranian. He goes by Chaz. And he was a member of our Board of Selectmen here in Townsend. In fact, he was the chair when all of this went down in, I think it was August of 2024, when I discovered, just by chance, that he was unemployed from his regular job. Our boards of selectmen have a life outside of being on a board of selectmen. They're not full-time employees or anything of the town. It's a volunteer position. So Chaz, at the time, his last job that I'm aware of was at a place called the Crozier House, a men's residential treatment facility for those. It's a substance abuse rehab, and I'm going to read some of this. Will be explained in the filings as well. And he was also a licensed alcohol and drug counselor, which is, that level of licensure is usually about the bachelor's level. It's not a master's level. They're not a full blown independently licensed person, but he was a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And for some reason, the Crozier House had him as the manager of this particular residential program, which actually, to be honest, he didn't have the experience that I would have hoped would put him in a position like that. I may present it at some point in my series. I have it in my computer somewhere, what he used to have listed on his LinkedIn page of what jobs he's had. And he really lacked the experience necessary for that job, in my opinion. Although it probably didn't pay that well to begin with. They probably had trouble filling it. And those of you that know Chaz knows he can he can convince you to buy the Brooklyn Bridge. And convince people how brilliant he is when he's just lying through his teeth. But that's my opinion. And if you know him, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, anyway, he was the manager of the Crozier House in his last position. And then, because hanging around town hall, I talked to people a lot. And I was starting to hear a theme that Chaz was around a lot. And people, when you're an employee of a town and you don't want your select board hanging around, you don't want to, because especially if they are always wanting to know too much or complaining about you or complaining about things, and can you just go away, go live your life and leave me alone. So town hall employees are not usually excited when select board members are walking around the place and getting involved with things that you don't want them to be. And that's, just kind of a casual comment. I'm not saying that they hate select board members. It's just they got enough work to do. They don't want to be interrupted by a politician. Even though I'm not just, if you could disagree with me on that, that's fine. I don't care. It's just, but anyways, I was starting to pick up this vibe, and I'm like, that seemed very strange because on select board meetings prior to this notice that I was seeing, this noticeable change in behavior, he had been complaining that there was so much going on and he has a very important job and he's very busy and he doesn't really have a lot of time and he's trying to, and he was, I don't know if he was doing a lot of zooming in. I can't remember because I know during COVID he was zooming in, but I can't remember at the last several months if he was or not. But he he was struggling. He was complaining. He was stating that he was struggling with his job responsibilities and how important it was. And like, okay, and I, I knew Chaz usually exaggerates things, but it's like, okay, he's busy, and okay, great. But he was not. He was having trouble getting to town hall at all, from what it was sounding like. And then all of a sudden, I'm hearing just chatter that he's hanging around a lot. And I knew historically that he does have a trouble keeping a job. He doesn't usually stay longer than a year and a half or 2 years, sometimes a little bit longer, but he just wasn't real good at keeping a job. Even as a professional, supposedly after graduating from his course, I mean, he was just jumping jobs, 1, 2 years, and he was somewhere else doing something completely different. Same field, kind of human services, but he would move along. And I was like, okay, let me check LinkedIn because I gotta keep updated because I had already been following his lack of a career because he just intrigued me from the time I first met him of his demeanor, and then every time I turned around he had a new job, so I just started following him on LinkedIn and checking in to see what's Chaz up to today. And he put everything on there. He didn't leave anything to chance. I swear he had, I'm probably exaggerating, but I think he even had paper routes from when he was a kid. If you can, if you have a LinkedIn account, you don't put the riffraff. You you might have some of your personal interests in there, but you don't put every job you've ever held. He actually, one of the jobs he held is he was a housekeeper at Haywood Hospital, I think. It's like you're trying to present yourself as a professional person. Not that there's anything wrong with housekeepers that work in hospitals, but if you're a professional person looking for profession, you don't put down every single. When I was in high school, I'm not going to tell you that. I mean, it's just stupid. I wouldn't put those on. You don't put that on your LinkedIn. But he was putting the whole kitchen sink was on his LinkedIn page. So I'm like, well, this is interesting. Someday I'll pull it up for you. I've got the old file somewhere. I got to find them. I do have them, unless, well, my hard drive crashed on my previous computer, but we'll see. But so I looked on LinkedIn. I was like, let me see, what is he up to now? Has he got a new job? What's he doing? Is he looking for work? And guess what I couldn't find? I couldn't find Chaz anywhere. He had taken down his entire LinkedIn page. Gone. I mean, Mr. I am so great, I need to tell you everything about me, and is just indulging in information about him. He is now gone, deleted, completely gone. And LinkedIn doesn't do that to you. You do it yourself. LinkedIn is a different animal than, say, Facebook or Twitter or whatever. LinkedIn probably does have censorship, but most people are pretty self-censored. It's used for job stuff, professional. It has a different personality. So he took it down. That was definitely clear to me that he removed himself from LinkedIn, which was so against everything I knew about this man. And that was his downfall with me. That's how I was able to break this story to you a year and a half ago, because, oh no, my red flags are flying. Everything was out there. So I said, okay, what do I need to find out? How can I find out what's going on? Something's wrong. Something's really wrong. So I knew he was a licensed professional. And I really didn't even remember whether I thought he might be an LMHC. No, I couldn't find that license. And I said, well, I guess, but I knew he was into substance abuse. So I said, okay, they keep changing things. The state changes how do you look how do you look up licenses for everybody? They keep changing it. So I finally tracked down the LADC license page with the Bureau of Substance Abuse, substance something. I don't know, BSAS. I don't know, but I found it. Oh, guess what? His license was suspended. Oh, oh, nice. So I said, well, this is a problem. You don't, you know, in some ways, it's easy to get your license suspended if you have certain mistakes in your life. On the other side, it's pretty hard, and you have to you got to really screw up for for them to for a licensing board to take that step. And you have rights. If they were to accuse anyone of wrongdoing, you have the right. They're going to have a hearing. They're going to, I mean, depending on what's transpired, they may suspend pending investigation. But they don't, because particularly with a healthcare providers are health directing care for patients and their clients. So you're going to disrupt if a licensing board takes someone's license, they could be disrupting the continuity of care for other people. So they take it pretty seriously. They don't just willy-nilly suspend people's licenses. They need some evidence first that something's wrong. Something that can't be argued about. The seriousness would go deeper. So if somebody, like in Chaz's case, they not only suspended his license, they ended up revoking it pretty quickly after the suspension. But he was given all of his rights and all that stuff, and he didn't appeal anything. And you'll see why if you didn't know already. So I know some of you already know this story, but I wanted to tell it again to some degree because a lot of people don't know. I might have new followers, or someone may fall upon this video and not know who and what I'm talking about. So I wanted to give a little bit of background. So what I'm going to do, I gotta remove that thing. I gotta bring up, if I can figure out where it is. Okay, yeah. Nope, hold on. I gotta get things ready. Where am I? Okay, I'm gonna open that with preview because that works so much better. Okay. I think I'm sharing screen. See, I'm out of touch with what I'm doing here. I haven't done this for a few days or so. That looks it. That's it. Okay. Okay, I saved you that and I muted my mic. Oh, it sucks. If you can avoid getting the flu, avoid it. If you haven't got a flu shot, can I advertise you to get it anyway? And if you want, wearing a mask is not a bad idea. Because this sucks. The flu sucks. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to pull this up. This is the lawsuit that was filed in United States District Court, District of Massachusetts. This was filed, I believe, in November. Gotta drink lots of fluid. Oh my. All right, I'm gonna go watch from somewhere else. Okay, so here's the lawsuit. It's John Doe, George Doe, and William Doe. In fact, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna change the display here because I am coughing up a storm and all that stuff. So, and the pixelation is really bad because I'm not in my usual space. I can move my computer around a little bit. So you can see that. I gotta get comfortable. Oh cow! All right, I'm ready. I think. Okay. So this is John Doe, George Doe, and William Doe, the unnamed victims of Mr. Chaz Sexton Duranian. And they are suing the Crozier House and these other people, Timothy McMahon, Carol LaFalam, Megan McLeod, and Michael Rubel, and Ralph. I don't know who that is. These are employees of Crozier House who didn't do their jobs when complaints started to come in. And that's what you're going to hear about today. So we have plaintiff's complaint and jury demand. The plaintiffs bring this action under the Civil Rights Act. And they're suing as amended regarding Fair Housing Act, Labor Trafficking Act, negligent hiring, supervision and retention, and violation of the Massachusetts Fair Wage laws. Pretty loaded. But yeah, and we're going to see exactly why those laws all play into this lawsuit. This court has jurisdiction. Of course it does. Venue is proper. Okay. Yep. They have the right to sue in federal court because of the federal laws that are in violation. Crozier House is a 3 to 6 month residential recovery service for men licensed under the Massachusetts Bureau of Substance Addictions, located at 10 Hammond Street. Is it? Substance? In Worcester County, Massachusetts. Worcester. Crozier House is an affiliate of Catholic Charities. Graduates of Crozier House can stay at the Crozier House for up to 18 months in the same facility run by the same individuals and referred to as Crozier Three-Quarter House. For purposes of this complaint, both will be referred to as Crozier House. Defendant Timothy McMahon is the executive director. Defendant Carol LaFalam is the COO of Crozier House. Defendant Megan McLeod is the administrative director of recovery. And defendant Charles Sexton Duranian, Chaz, was at all relevant times the director of Crozier House, and it gives his residence here in Townsend, but we don't need to go over that. Defendant Michael Rubel was the clinical supervisor of the men's recovery program, and upon information and belief has a business address up there as well. Okay. Defendant Ralph was a maintenance supervisor, and yes, okay. So he played a role in some of this. So Crozier House is a dwelling for the purposes of the Federal Fair Housing Act. Crozier House offers 60 residential beds for men in recovery. The individuals who live at Crozier House are referred to as residents. Often, this is important, often the residents who live at Crozier House, and this is what makes this really sickening. And when we hear about the impact that Chaz had on these individuals' life, this is just makes me sick. The residents who live at Crozier House, they're there because they're court involved and are ordered to enter and complete the Crozier House program as a condition of bail, probation, or parole. In other words, if they don't graduate, they're getting bounced, sometimes back to a long prison sentence. Okay? Crozier House is occupied, designed, and intended for occupancy as a residence for individuals. Crozier House is available for those in need of shelter and recovery support. Crozier House residents are not visitors or those on a temporary sojourn in the sense of motel guests. The residents who live there intend to return there each day, and they keep their belongings. Right, this is just providing background to clarify for the court that these people do live here and they meet the requirements of the FHA. Although Crozier House is not designed to be a place of permanent residence, most residents have nowhere else to go except back to incarceration or homelessness. Crozier House is the residence in the sense that they live there and not in any other place. Yes, it's not like they're in a treatment program where they have a house that they're going back to, which is often the case for a lot of substance abuse treatment facilities. Now, here's some of their funding. And this is also important to drive this home as a federal case. ARPA. They got ARPA money. Okay? For organizations who the city of Worcester administers these funds. In 2022, the Crozier House made an application for ARPA money, and they did receive $95,000 in an ARPA grant based on the basis that Crozier House had represented it meets the enumerated criteria set forth in the law by providing behavioral health care to households who have been impacted or disproportionately impacted by COVID-19. The contract is appended. It's in this thing. I'm not going to go too deep into this, but they've got $95,000, and I am going to read the requirement that what services are supposed to be provided to residents. First of all, the sub-recipient Crozier House will provide a safe and supportive environment for people. Important here, safe and supportive environment for people struggling with substance use, and co-occurring capable disorders. I don't know if that's the right word, but okay. Case managers shall meet weekly with each individual, assisting them in applying for benefits, housing, employment, and with actually expunging their CORI records to make obtaining employment and housing easier. The sub-recipient shall also offer therapeutic outings, community days, skills-based learning opportunities, leisure activities, and more. These opportunities will aid in replacing addictive behaviors and act as an incentive towards participating in healthy replacement behaviors. By expanding the 36-bed facility, the subrecipient will be able to dedicate more beds to residents and have successfully completed the program but still not able to successfully transfer and or finance sober or independent living. This graduate house will be available not only for Crozier program graduates, but also available for anyone who has successfully completed a 3 to 6 month treatment program, is dedicated to remaining sober, is working full-time, and has all the recovery supports in place to transition to the next step of independent living. The facility allows residents to be self-sufficient, but still be held accountable to continue their sober journey. The agreement further states that the subrecipient will comply with all other applicable federal, state, local laws, ordinance, regulations, etc., and so on. Okay. The agreement is a document outlining specific federal statutes and regulations, etc., whatever. So, yeah, this gets into just the legalities of signing the contract. Number of just all the financing. We don't need to go over all that. They offer dwellings to the plaintiffs, at least in part through federal funds, through mass health payments. Crozier House residents do not pay rent. Their attendance at Crozier House is subsidized by the federal government. It's also important to know. Crozier Three-Quarter House residents do pay rent. As such, their housing is subject to Federal Fair Housing Act as well. Further, the Crozier Three-Quarter House specifically received SLRF grants, which was also specifically subject to the Fair Housing Act, whatever. Okay. Based on information available at the time of the filing of this complaint, which again is November of 2025, some of Sexton's misconduct occurred at Crozier Three-Quarter House and Summit Crozier House. All of Sexton's misconduct that the three plaintiffs allege were committed against them occurred at Crozier House. Okay. Nonetheless, since Sexton was the director of both Crozier House and Crozier Three-Quarter House, and since they are run under the umbrella of Crozier House, and since they are both explicitly subject to FHA pursuant to SLRF contract, blah, blah, okay. It's all Crozier House. All right. Section 3. Crozier House residents were sexually harassed by Sexton, forced into unpaid labor, and retaliated against by Sexton and other supervisors. Crozier House defendants knew or should have known about Sexton's sexually harassing behavior and about the forced labor practices, yet did nothing to protect the residents. At all times, Sexton was employed at Crozier House as its director beginning in July 2022 until his termination on March 8th, 2024. And just as a historical note, everyone, Chaz was reelected to the Board of Selectmen in April of 2024. So he was going through all this while he was getting reelected onto the Board of Selectmen, thinking that, oh no, nobody's ever going to know. Oh, silly boy. As the program director, Sexton was responsible for the overall management of the Crozier House and supervision of all direct care staff and the overnight manager. He reported directly to Director McLeod. Sexton supervised the maintenance supervisor, defendant. Megan McLeod was the administrative director, was Sexton's supervisor. As the administrative director, Director McLeod is responsible for oversight and supervision, and really should have given it. I'm really shocked as we're going through this. I'm really shocked at the lack of supervision that Chaz had. He was not. Nobody was paying any attention to what he was doing. They just weren't, and nobody's. There's nothing. Maybe when this lawsuit moves forward, and there will be different filings as time goes on, the Crozier House will come up with some kind of documents, maybe, that just says that I'm wrong, that there was more supervision. But this, of course, is the defendant's attorney writing all this, so we're only getting one side. At all times relevant to this action, Sexton controlled or had the power to control all aspects of the management of Crozier House when he engaged in the unlawful harassment and conduct alleged in this complaint. Throughout his employment until March 8, 2024, when he was terminated, defendant Sexton subjected many male residents of Crozier House to discrimination based on sex, including unwelcome, severe, pervasive, and quid pro quo sexual harassment on multiple occasions. Hold on a second here. I gotta. Okay, let me get back. I had to cough. Defendant's sexual harassing conduct includes, but is not limited to, offering to grant tangible benefits, such as getting high at the facility or giving special house privileges in exchange for engaging in sexual acts with him. Now, getting high at the facility, it doesn't say that, and I don't know that it says it anywhere in this document. I'll have to keep reading it. I don't think I've read every single word yet. There's a lot. There's just a lot here. I don't even know how far. I don't know how far down I am. Oh, we're on page 8 of 36. So let's see. So I don't know that Chaz was getting high with these people, or what. I'm really unclear. It doesn't say that. It just says he was going to allow house members, people who were there for treatment, to allow them to get high, which is just bizarre. You don't do that. I mean, you don't do any of this, actually, but here we are. I got to check this out quick. Yeah, I did open. Okay. I was afraid I didn't open my mic again. Okay. Frequently making unwelcome sexual comments and sexual advances toward male residents, including but not limited to propositions for sexual acts and inquiries into their sex lives. Subjecting male residents to unwelcome sexual touching, making unwanted comments regarding male residents' bodies, suggesting that male residents engaged in a sexual relationship with him, and retaliating and taking adverse house actions against tenants who reported his conduct, including removal or eviction from housing and the prospect of incarceration for contrived violation of probation or parole. This whole thing bothers me. It's horrible, but he retaliated, and he did cause some of these residents to be incarcerated because they did not participate in sexual conduct with Chaz. Um, he did. They really, he really caused these men to go back to jail. And I wouldn't be surprised if one or all of these three plaintiffs in this case did not end up going to jail, and they got out, they did their sentence, and then decided to sue. I don't know. We don't know all the details of these people, so I wouldn't be surprised. I think that if that were me, I certainly would. Holy cow, they probably were on the phone with lawyers as soon as they got incarcerated again and had to work through the last year to fix this stuff. And I want to tell you that back when I did my original video where I revealed his conduct a year and a half ago, after I did that video, I was receiving um, people reached out to me who were at the Crozier house, had been, and were kicked out, or they left to get away from him. And they clarified that I was right, that I was telling the right story, except they wanted to make sure I understood that Crozier House was not listening to them, that they complained and nothing was done. I don't have their information, so when on YouTube, everybody can be completely anonymous in contacting me, and I have no reason to believe that they were making it up, and so I don't know who they are, and they deleted the comments afterwards, so I couldn't testify or anything because I don't have it. It's all hearsay, completely, really deep. But I just want to let my viewers know that I did hear from residents after they did see my video, and they agreed. So I wouldn't be surprised if I don't hear from more again after I do this video to, I don't know, I guess thank me for doing it. I don't know. Or clarifying, or I do not expect anybody would contact me and admit to being a defendant or a plaintiff, one of the does here. I think that they should, if you are watching, just talk to your lawyer. Don't pull me into it. Not that I wouldn't. I don't care. It's not about me. I just want to make sure that the plaintiffs don't give up any of their rights by calling me and saying something wrong that they shouldn't. Just stick to your lawsuit. This is a big one, and I think I don't know. You're gonna win. I can't imagine. I mean, I can only hope that there's a settlement. There is an insurance policy. Again, it's not a big one. I don't know what your lawyers think, but I would hope that Catholic Charities will want this to go away. And I think that Catholic Charities would like these sexual accusations to go away. So I'm hoping for the benefit of everybody involved that they settle, and hopefully it's in an amount that makes the plaintiffs happy, which sometimes these things, nobody ever wins. A win is not a win. These men who are impacted by Chaz's very bad behavior are impacted for their lives were really messed up by this, and they can never get their time back. They can't get that back. And it's and the trust that anybody would have for any program, the vulnerability is always there, but it's really hard for people to trust after seeing this happen to somebody. The amount of power and control that Chaz had over these men is
is horrible, and he knew it, and he took advantage of it, and it makes me sick. I think Chaz needs help. He's got a problem, and hopefully he's gotten mental health help himself. I just can't comprehend this behavior. He's certainly not. He's not a healthy man at all, in any sense. Okay, so defendant Sexton also forced residents to perform manual labor. With his knowledge and approval, allowed his employees to force residents to perform manual labor without pay. This included, but is not limited to, renovating the kitchen at the Crozier House, forcing residents to review blueprints, forcing residents to fumigate furniture that was infested with bedbugs without proper protective equipment, and forcing residents to move furniture, paint rooms, address plumbing and electrical issues, and clean and detail Sexton's car. This is just completely crazy. Crozier House supervisors knew, or should have known, that Sexton was sexually harassing residents or was forcing them to perform manual labor and was violating Massachusetts regulations. On June of 2023, this is almost a year before they terminated him, someone complained, which is, there is a number to call to file a complaint. When you're in a program like this, it's supposed to be posted on the bulletin board for residents. I'm surprised that Chaz didn't rip that down, but it needs to be there. And everybody is supposed to know that they have the right to complain. And this person did. In a year, almost a year before his termination. Unbelievable. But he stated that Crozier House did not have air conditioning except for the staff offices. He explained that the building was getting excessively hot and they are not allowed to use any type of air conditioning. He stated that the residents were subject to labor in excessive heat and were not allowed to shower before going on job searches. In July of 2023, this is another resident called BSAS complaint line to file a complaint. The complaint stated he had been at Crozier House for 1.5 months without disciplinary issues. He stated that earlier that day, Sexton had called the resident into his office and informed him he was discharging him because he was allegedly not following program rules. The complainant stated he had nowhere to go and that this was against program rules, which required a warning system. So that's sad. There's one guy kicked out, and he apparently didn't do anything wrong. And probably, whether it doesn't say whether this guy ended up in jail, but he was sent into homelessness apparently. So in August of 23, the wife of the head of the billing department filed a complaint that her husband had disclose to her that Sexton was directing her husband to submit fraudulent billing. She stated that a patient might leave on a Monday, but that Sexton directed her husband to bill for more days, even though the patient had left. This is bizarre. She also disclosed that she was with her husband on one occasion, and Sexton made lewd comments toward him, including asking her husband to help him urinate. Please. BSAS investigated her complaints and partially substantiated the complaint concerns. In September of 2023, BSAS found that Crozier House was not following state regulations. They were failing to complete initial assessments of residents upon admission, were not completing the resident discharge summary, and were not completing an aftercare plan. A review of 15 resident charts identified a lack of discharge plan, suggesting a lack of continuity of care, corroborating the complaint BSAS had received in July. Now, I'm going to talk about this briefly. When you're in any kind of behavioral health care, I don't care what it is, this kind or any kind, or this is probably medical too, but strictly behavioral health. First of all, you don't get admitted to programs. Oh yeah, come on in. And here, go ahead. Just go to your room, and not write anything down, not assess anybody for the appropriateness of, do you belong here? Why are you here? And not
it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Like you determine, what kind of help are we providing this person? This person has come to us, wants to apply for admission to this program. What are this person's needs, and what are we going to provide for this person? What kind of services? What kind of treatment, if applicable? What are their risks to further homelessness? How can we stabilize them for the longer term? And where substance abuse is involved, getting a comprehensive substance abuse intake is really important, and to help them stay clean and sober. And if they don't, and even when people relapse, they don't always get kicked out. That you work through that, but you have to identify, how is the program going to manage this particular person's problems, and then it also determines whether or not your program is appropriate for this person. It may not be. They weren't completing. All right, the discharge summary. That means when somebody's getting ready to leave a program, you don't just discharge them willy nilly like Chaz was doing. You determine that they've met their objectives, or they haven't. They were unable. You document clearly that they had a history. They repeatedly violated program rules, and you document each one. You don't just make generic statements. Oh, they're a jerk. They just wouldn't, they didn't participate properly in the program and we just had to get rid of them. You don't put that in a discharge summary. You document it. Like the program is going to review their policies. Like how could we manage this person better? Did we do something that could we have done something better? Or, what kind of things, how did we handle each instance that led to them, if they were discharged early, or if sometimes a resident wants to quit the program, and that's probably the easiest discharge summary to write, but you still have to write one, and then you need an aftercare plan. John Doe is being discharged from the program for whatever the reason. They could be all done, but when you're in a program that's providing housing, you're preventing homelessness, you're treating significant substance abuse possibly, and especially if these men had been with a history of incarceration, you want to have an aftercare plan that helps them prevent further incarceration and staying out of trouble, further prevent them from homelessness. Where are they going to live? And is this a good plan? Is it just temporary housing? Are they, are they hooked up with other social service providers or family or somebody that's going to help them stay housed? And then what are they doing? What's their aftercare plan for their substance abuse? Are they going to participate in 12-step programs? Are they going to do some type of, is there another outpatient program that they can participate in? And in some cases, these discharge summaries and whatnot aren't all good. Sometimes someone, they kept relapsing, and their discharge summary and aftercare plan included inpatient treatment somewhere else, in which they'd be in a more restrictive environment to help them maybe do more rehab on their substance abuse side. So there's a mixed bag of things, but Chaz wasn't doing any of these things, and he was trained to do them. He knew, and he also knew, if he ever read the policies of his employment, these are things that he should have known how to do, even if you do them half-assed. I've seen plenty of places that do a half-assed, and sometimes it's because there's not much to say, or you just have a lot to do, but you make some attempt. And you can always improve, but this was these lacked everything. Everything was missing. Okay, the defendants were made aware of these findings. So the BSAS, because they would come in to programs like this and inspect anyway, but they probably came in due to complaints. It's not really clear why they were there. So in September and October, Crozier House was forced to undergo training so the staff understood regulatory requirements. So this is the state telling them they had to have new training. So this was 6 months prior to Chaz being fired, they had to undergo more training. Apparently Chaz didn't think it applied to him. Sounds like the Townsend Board of Selectmen too. That's where they got it from Chaz. Nonetheless, Sexton continued to openly violate Crozier House rules. On September 29th, a complaint reported that he had attended Crozier House and that Sexton played favorites with the residents in the house and could be biased. The complaint stated he had observed one resident relapse numerous times. However, he was not kicked out of the program, where other residents who had relapsed were. So some people got kicked out first time and other people could just keep relapsing. He must have liked them. The complainant reported there were rumors that the resident was able to stay due to performing sexual favors for Sexton. There it is. Now that's rumor, but that's what they're thinking. The complainant reported that he had observed another resident of the program to have some kind of interaction with Sexton the day before and afterward appeared shook. You could take that for whatever it's worth. Oh, here it is. The complainant stated that the resident shared that he was going to leave the program because Sexton had ordered him to submit to a strip search, and that during the search, Sexton had made a sexual advance on him. It appeared to the reporting complainant that the resident had been sexually assaulted. Now, if I recall, I don't know if it's covered in here, but sexual abuse is not allowed. But strip searching isn't either. I think that if strip searching might have very limited role in this program, I think that because of the sexual assault nature that it's very to be strip searched. I don't care why you're strip searched or where you're strip searched. It's intimidating. It's frightening, and you don't do it unless there's an absolute safety reason to do it. You don't do it as punishment or to intimidate. You are looking. Never mind. I think if this program allowed it at all, there were precautions and there were safety rules around it to protect the residents who were going to be subjected to it. And I don't think that Chaz had the authority to make a decision like that. I don't. And he did it anyway. The complainant accused Sexton of being a predator, just like I have, and that he had seen him sexually harass other residents in the house. In October of 2023, so this is just all summer from June of 2023 through October, and even we're going to get into December, that people were calling and complaining about Chaz. So in October, a resident called BSAS and disclosed that he had been kicked out of the program and told he needed to leave immediately. The resident, if he could have a ride to a different recovery program, and Sexton refused. He was told the reason for discharge was being disrespectful to staff. That's not a reason to get discharged. People in these programs who have been incarcerated, who have a substance abuse problem, may have a problem with authority. And you can't just make a rule and make them, you have to be respectful. You have to kiss my ass or we're going to throw you out. You can't, trying to teach everybody manners when they're in a program like this is just not really possible. That you're going to have interactions that can be challenging. And this is a completely unacceptable reason to discharge somebody from a program, especially the way that Chaz chose to do it. He stated he was thrown out in the rain without transportation or resources. He was on the street for 3 days before he found a bed elsewhere. Now, clearly, there was no discharge summary and after action plan. Hello? Or aftercare plan, not after action. This is completely abusive right there. And I don't think the guy didn't, on December 19th, now we're 6 months in, 6 months of complaints from a resident alleging that Sexton had convened a house meeting, threatening them with discharge if they sought help from outside entities. The caller stated that many of the new residents were being admitted from the program directly from incarceration without any belongings. Residents were sharing clothes and shoes with former inmates. The reporter believed that Sexton was misusing funding that had been allotted for residents' basic needs. So Chaz was not using the money. You go into a program like that, most programs where you're staying overnight, that there's always either donated clothing or clothing that the program will purchase with funding, apparently, to keep clothes on their backs. And he wasn't using it. I don't know what he was using the money for, where that money was going. And that seemed to be a theme with Chaz. So if you know Chaz, don't let him have any money. Don't let him have access to money. As will be explained below, Sexton's behavior was open and obvious. Sexton's supervisors knew or should have known that Sexton was sexually harassing residents and forcing them to engage in forced labor and did nothing to protect residents. Now, when I think about this meeting that he's alleged to have held, like if you're in a program like this, his position did not have the importance that it sounds like it did. Like he made his position have more authority. And I don't know what his supervisors were doing, but they weren't doing their job. But and he didn't work there very long. He was only there a year when all these complaints are coming in by the day. And you have a position like that, and if you're having challenges with your customers, your patients, your clients, your residents, and you are having issues managing them, you don't wing it. You can, there's a level where you kind of basic stuff you can probably do on your own. But when you're having challenges where you're thinking about discharging people, and you don't just do those things on your own, you go to your supervisor and say, okay, here we are. I've got these residents that we're having multiple problems with, and I want to discharge them. You wouldn't make this decisions independently. You just wouldn't do it. I don't believe he had the authority, and if he did, he never should have. His supervisor was just not engaging with Chaz either, based on what I'm reading. But Chaz, just to protect himself, if you're doing your job, which he apparently was taking advantage of the power and control he had over these people, there's no question in my mind. And he wasn't going to go to his supervisor because he didn't want his supervisor to know what was going on. And they apparently didn't care because they didn't know what to do. A program like this too doesn't, what do we do when these things are happening? And sometimes when you're in a program like this, it's a tough line to cross, or to be cognizant of, is that sometimes patients in these situations sometimes do lie. And because they're trying to retaliate against, you're disciplined in some way, you lose a privilege, and you're going to now complain about your captor. You're going to complain that the person who took away some of your privileges is doing something wrong and treating you unfairly or doing something absolutely illegal. I mean, those things do happen, but you need multiple people to review these things if you have that opportunity. And there's plenty of opportunity that this program should have been doing that. That if there's a complaint, it takes a team to look at it and to make sure that there isn't going to be repercussions. Like, this has been going on for a few years now, and this is a major league lawsuit. So Catholic Charities or Crozier House did not do enough. Getting rid of Chaz almost a year after the complaints were coming in was not good enough. And they just wanted it to go away. Okay, resident John Doe, sexual harassment. John attended the Crozier House from January to April. John was on Mass Health. Court ordered John to attend and complete Crozier House as a condition of his release from jail. He was ordered to stay sober. He had a curfew and an ankle bracelet. Throughout his life, John had cocaine and heroin addiction.
He had a serious trauma history and struggled with PTSD. John was eager to stay in the program, and he wanted to stay sober, and knew that if he was kicked out of the program, he would be sent back to jail. Crozier House owns vans. Pursuant to Crozier House rules, all transport of residents must occur in the Crozier House vans. Sexton gave car rides to John in Sexton's own private vehicle on multiple occasions. At some point, John overheard Sexton yelling at staff, residential advisors, saying that if they went to any of Sexton's supervisors to disclose that he was given residence ride in his personal vehicle rather than using the registered vans, he would fire the staff who told. John observed Sexton touching other residents and staff on their shoulders, back, and neck constantly. John heard that people were randomly chosen for strip searches. During the strip searches, Sexton would get handsy. This made John scared of inappropriate, unwanted sexual touching. On one occasion, John heard Sexton tell one resident to go to the medical room and take his clothes off. Subsequent to this incident, the resident disclosed to John that he had been subjected to a strip search, and that the maintenance supervisor had watched the door while Sexton made lewd comments, including calling the resident sexty. According to the resident, Sexton tried to grab the resident's buttocks and touch his penis. The resident soon after left the program, and John did not know why. This made John feel scared of unfair treatment he did not want to participate in. In order to take a shower at Crozier House, John would have to walk down a hallway from his bedroom. Sexton often stared at John when John was traveling from his room to the bathroom in a towel. This made John feel uncomfortable. John heard defendant Sexton frequently make comments about the resident's body. He called them handsome and sexy. He often asked about their sexual experience, including whether they engaged in sexual contact in prison or whether they performed sexual favors in exchange for drugs. John recalled that Sexton made sexual remarks towards other people like nice ass and invited them to come to his office or a private room. This made John feel scared. Sexton and Supervisor Ralph told John that he had to do everything he was told or else he would have to go back to jail. In February of 2024, now he's only been there like a month, John and another male resident were attending, George Doe, which is another plaintiff, were attending a day program called Everyday Miracles. Sexton came to the day program and told John and George that he was there to investigate whether two other residents were attending the program. Sexton threatened to kick the residents out of the program if they weren't at Everyday Miracles. Sexton began questioning George about whether he had seen the two other residents. As he did so, Sexton put his hand on George's shoulder and rubbed his back down to his buttocks. Then Sexton hugged John and grabbed John's buttocks and whispered, "Do you like that?" in his ear. All of this made John terrified and worried about the future in the program. The pressure of the sexual harassment also made him distressed about his future in sobriety and staying clean. And that's what happens. While he lived at Crozier House, John had secured a full-time job at a steel fabrication business and worked there 8 hours a day. When John returned to Crozier House after working all day, Sexton forced him to work an additional 2 hours performing kitchen renovations without pay. John performed work on the kitchen renovations nearly every day that he lived at Crozier House. John was made to assist with demolition cleaning and tile removal of the kitchen. Also helped install the refrigerator. He helped uninstall washing machines to make room for delivery of new washing machines, all without pay. John observed that people who refused to perform labor would be kicked out of the program. Now, they had a maintenance guy that should have been doing these things, or they should have hired contractors. And of course, you have to remember that these guys aren't licensed to do this kind of work. If you have a house, or if you've ever needed to overhaul your kitchen, you need a building permit. You can't get a permit and have unlicensed people do the work. So that's not even mentioned in here. John observed that people who refused to perform labor would get kicked out of the program. John was worried that if he did not do what Sexton asked, he would get kicked out. John observed Sexton task residents with cleaning and detailing his car without pay. Ralph was in charge of maintenance issues and reported to Sexton. Supervisor Ralph, with Sexton's knowledge, forced John to perform labor. Ralph threatened John with consequences like ejection from the program. Apparently, there was a lot of threatening going on here. Ralph made John shovel snow for 2 hours at a time. John would shovel the entire property, including areas around the church, elementary school, Crozier House, and the parking lot. Ralph paid John in cigarettes to perform the task. Sometimes Ralph paid John $20 for 2 hours of shoveling. Both forms of payment are less than the 15-hour minimum wage required in Massachusetts. John was forced to clean out rooms after residents left and clean the common area for no pay. On one occasion, Ralph took John to a female recovery house and forced John to perform cleaning tasks there for no pay. Upon information and belief, Supervisor Ralph was forcing John to work without pay with Sexton's approval. John's ejection from the program. In March 2024, Crozier House finally conducted an investigation into Sexton's sexually harassing behavior. Now, Sexton was terminated shortly after this. John was not interviewed. The abuse of John was so open and obvious, he should have been interviewed. On March 8th, 2024, Sexton was terminated. Supervisor Rubel and Director McLeod were tasked with splitting the role of director of Crozier House on an interim basis while they searched for a new director. John was vocal about his objection to Sexton's conduct. John observed that individuals who had been vocal about sexual harassment during the investigation appeared to be getting kicked out one by one. In the weeks following Sexton's termination, Supervisor Michael Rubel kicked John out of the program. Rubel kicked John out of the program to intimidate him from disclosing the misconduct he had observed at Crozier House. So the plot thickens. We have a conspiracy now. The circumstances of John's ejection from the program were that over Easter holiday, John had sought and received an overnight pass to spend the night at his grandmother's for Easter. When he returned, his belongings were packed. John followed the procedure for permission to get the overnight pass. Nonetheless, Rubel claimed that he had not followed Crozier House rules for obtaining an overnight pass. As a consequence, John was basically kicked out of the program, and his bail was revoked. So here's one plaintiff who went to jail as a result, and that leads to a lawsuit. Male resident George was also he was involuntarily committed there. After release from an involuntary Section 35 commitment. Section 35 is when you're court ordered to substance abuse treatment. Crozier House is not someplace you can be Section 35 to, but it's usually a detox program of some sort. And then this was the aftercare from that. George had struggled with heroin and crack cocaine addictions, not having where to go. Besides Crozier House, he was anxious to stay at Crozier House. He would be homeless. He was worried about his sobriety. George also suffered from PTSD and had a significant history. In January 2024, George went to Sexton's office to report an issue with a roommate who had wielded a knife at George in a shared room. When George entered the room, Sexton was seated behind his desk. Sexton immediately got up, walked around his desk, and approached George. He then began caressing George's shoulders and moved his hand towards George's buttocks. Sexton told George he had three choices: that Sexton could force George to stay in the room with the roommate, that Sexton could kick him out of the program, or that Sexton could move him. This made George feel uncomfortable and scared that he might get thrown out of the program unless he did whatever Sexton wanted. As mentioned in a previous paragraph, George was the second resident who was sexually harassed by Sexton, along with John, at the Everyday Miracles program. This just goes on and on. I mean, and I'm not even halfway done with this, by the way. George heard rumors about Sexton conducting random strip searches, and it made him feel scared. This goes on. This is just, George observed Sexton throw homeless residents out of the facility without any justification for doing so. He was, again, more forced labor by George. I'm going to skip through some of this. Some of this is just the same stuff. Here we go. George gave an interview to investigators about Sexton's conduct. Days later, a resident was overdosing in his room. George, who happened to be walking by, saw that the man was not breathing. He called for help. Supervisor Rubel responded to the room and started CPR. George told Rubel that CPR would not work and he had to administer Narcan. George got Narcan and handed it to Rubel. Rubel administered Narcan, and 15 seconds later, the man revived. Oh my. Rubel ordered everyone back to their rooms. 3 days later, on April 1st, Rubel informed George that he was being cited for interfering with the overdose and being discharged. He was kicked out for saving the guy's life. It makes me sick that here we have a staff member who doesn't know what to do in an overdose. Rubel just came into the room and started doing CPR. And George knew to get Narcan. And he got it and he gave it to Rubel, which would be normal behavior. Rubel should have gotten the Narcan himself, but he got kicked out because because of the Narcan. Yeah. And of course, he had already was known that he had been complaining about Sexton. So here we go. Now we've got the third guy. So there's 2 down. So I'm going to try to skip through this a little bit so that, Sexton doing the same thing. Oh, we referred to William as fresh meat. Oh, you don't want to go back to jail, right? One strike and you're out. No second chances. You only got 1 shot here. This is my house. Sexton led recovery meetings. Oh, why? During those recovery meetings, Sexton frequently talked about sex. What? Had sex with a bunch of guys and girls, and if someone had sex with a man more than twice, he was gay, but less than twice, he wasn't. I don't know. There's something wrong with this guy. Really. This is bizarre. Sexton ended recovery meetings by asking everyone to get into a circle, put their arms around each other's shoulders, and chant, "The best disinfectant is to put sunlight on it." What the hell does that mean? During these circles, Sexton stood next to William and put his hand on William's buttocks. William felt panicked. Oh, Sexton. This is something. Sexton, I'm not going to say this out loud because YouTube is certainly going to shut me down. Sexton asked William to sit on the couch next to him. Sexton put his arm around William, told William that if you S my D, I'll let you do whatever you want here. Sexton told William he wanted to record a sexual encounter between the two of them. What? Sexton grabbed William's buttocks and stated that the resident be one of his favorite clients and have free reign and would be able to do whatever he wanted at Crozier House if he acquiesced to Sexton's sexual advances. He told William that he could even get high if you want, as long as you don't do it in front of people. At one point, he put his hand on William's leg and then touched William's penis over his clothes. William was terrified. I don't blame him. There's something wrong with Chaz to be doing this stuff. To all of it, any of it. This is making me sick. And Crozier House or Catholic Charities never should have hired him. I just can't even. This is outrageous. William disclosed to John that Sexton had kept asking William whether he had engaged in gay sex in prison. Crozier House commenced an investigation in March, despite the fact that complaints had been made from June on. William continued to be sexually harassed in March, failed to conduct a timely investigation, and permitted Sexton to continue to abuse residents despite being on notice. William also suffered forced labor. Unreal. This is going on and on and on. Okay, at some point, we have William was worried if he did not do what Sexton asked, he'd get kicked out of the program. At some point between March 8th and 14th, after Chaz was terminated on the 8th, William tried to tell Supervisor Rubel about sex and sexually harassing behavior, and Rubel assured him that he would handle it. Director McLeod made statements to William warning him that to keep allegations private and that they would be addressed internally. On or about March 14th, William tried to speak to his recovery coach about sex and sexually harassing behavior and his concern that nothing that was being done about it. Joe responded by warning William that it was not a good time to be talking about the staff. Days later, William observed that a resident had overdosed. And William told Rubel that he intended to go to BSAS and make a complaint about what he was observing at Crozier House. Rubel asked him to calm down, to wait until the next morning. They would discuss this in a meeting. William woke up to parole officers arresting him for a parole violation, and he was returned to custody. William's discharge date was March 14th. Upon information and belief, William was retaliated against for saying he was going to disclose what had happened at Crozier House. So these are the three plaintiffs. So, yep, that's what was going on here. Let's see. A number of residents were starting to call. Let's see. And file complaints about Sexton. Okay. Crozier House Clinical Supervisor Rubel telephoned Sexton. Supervisor Rubel informed Sexton about the allegations. Sexton responded, "Well, unless I receive a letter from a lawyer, I'm not worried about it." Sexton then telephoned Director McLeod and notified her of the report. She was forwarded the incident report by email. So he must have still been working there when this was going on. Yes, this was a month before he was terminated. They were just ignoring everything. They wanted everything to just go away. March 2024, they received a second call from a former resident. This is a current resident talking to me by going the same thing. He's afraid to leave his room. The second call came. The calls were coming in. So word was out on the street, apparently, and people were filing complaints left and right. This is pretty. I'm not going to read every word here because I've still got almost 10 pages to go, and I don't think all of us want to sit here and just read the same story over and over again. Sexton told the staff member that he needs assistance to go to the bathroom. He knew that an anonymous caller was and said that when he first came into the program, Chaz was happy because he knew that he had some kind of engineering background. Yeah, I'd heard about him last time. Let's see, I'm just going through. I mean, there seems to be a lot of strip searching going on. Let's see. Oh, Rubel admitted he knew that this was a violation of human rights of the residents of the Crozier House program policy and that he was afraid of standing up to Sexton because of how Sexton might retaliate. I knew that, strip searches are just not allowed. They're just not. No. Sexton engaged in sexually inappropriate conduct, abuse, and sexual harassment, intimidation towards resident staff, failed to maintain boundaries of the counseling relationship, and violated ethical standards. And they terminated his license. Oh, first they suspended it, and then they eventually terminated it. So this is the basics of the lawsuit, that the defendants made dwellings unavailable because of sex in violation of 42 U.S.C., discriminated in the terms, conditions, and privileges of the rental or sale of dwellings, coerced, intimidated, threatened, or interfered with persons in the exercise or enjoyment of
or on account of their having exercised or enjoyed their rights granted or protected under the Fair Housing Act. The defendants constitute a pattern or practice resistant to the full enjoyment. Male tenants have been injured by the defendants' discriminatory conduct. These persons are aggrieved persons and have suffered damages as a result of the defendant's conduct. As a result and proximate result of the defendant's conduct, the plaintiffs have suffered personal injuries and suffered and continue to suffer severe and personal mental distress and emotional harm as other consequential damages. And I think kicking people out, making into homelessness when they weren't supposed to be, and with at least 2 of them going back to prison inappropriately, who they were doing everything they were supposed to be doing in order to get on with their life beyond whatever they were sentenced to prison for in the first place, that they were in programs that were supposed to prevent these things from happening. And it's just, and their lives are damaged because it's on their record that they violated parole or bail or probation or whatever. And this will follow them for the rest of their life. At some point, it could be years from now, they may have the opportunity to have their records expunged, possibly, but not before this case gets done. There's just, and trying to get a job, and it's, even if they've done everything right, and because of the damaged mental health, because of what was done to them, their lack of trust in other people, and they're at risk for further substance use and relapse. And it's horrible what Chaz did to these people. It's horrible. And he shouldn't be allowed to come even close to doing anything like this again. And let me tell you, this is for a short period of time. And I refuse to believe that he was a choir boy. Well, I shouldn't use that term, I guess. But he was a saint prior to this. Oh, he never did anything like this until he worked at Crozier House. It was, everything. He had no problems at any other employment. I don't buy that for one solitary second. It's just my opinion that I think that his prior employers may have had very similar concerns, and they moved him along, and nothing was ever done. I would not be surprised if he didn't have similar complaints elsewhere, and they took the easy way and just told him to move on, and everybody was happy, except for, I'm sure he has victims somewhere else, but I can't prove that. It's just my opinion that this doesn't smell right, that this didn't just happen overnight. This is who Chaz was before he went to work for Crozier House. As a direct and proximate result of defendant's conduct, the plaintiffs... Oh, I already read that. All right, the plaintiffs repeat and allege here all paragraphs of the complaint. The defendants had a duty to exercise reasonable care in the hiring, training, supervision, and retention of its employees, including to ensuring that staff members were properly qualified, adequately trained, and fit to care for this vulnerable population. And as I said earlier, I don't think Chaz was even qualified to have that job. He did not have the work history that would have made him in a position for that, especially with no supervision. Upon information and belief that failed to conduct appropriate background checks, reference checks, screening procedures that would have revealed unfitness or unsuitability of Crozier House employees. And I think they're referring loosely to Chaz. They didn't do background checks. They didn't do reference checks. They didn't screen. Like, why? Just looking at his job history that I know about would have raised flags for me. And certainly they should have called his previous employers. And I don't know that previous employers would have helped with determining unsuitability, because a lot of places now, they don't provide references like that because they don't want to get sued. They really don't. Upon information and belief, they failed to provide adequate trainings. The defendants failed to adequately supervise, including defendants Sexton, Roble, and Supervisor Ralph, permitting them to sexually harass the residents and allowing them to force the residents to perform forced labor. And basically, the employers there should have known. And of course, the violation of the wage law. Um, I mean, I'm sorry to skip over this. I mean, this is an important charge to violate these wage laws, but the psychological injuries, the sexual harassment, the sexual assault, which it sounds like was occurring, and it's just total resident abuse by the system, not just Chaz, but Chaz was the absolute worst. Okay, so that is the lawsuit here that was filed. We've been talking over an hour and a half, and as I've said, I don't feel that great. I'm still recovering from the flu, people. So what I'm going to do here is that's the lawsuit. And I skipped through part of it pretty quickly because there's 3 plaintiffs and their stories are quite similar with some of the experiences that they had. Each of them have a little bit of unique story, but mostly the same theme. And I don't think that can be mistaken. They didn't get together and make this stuff up. This is not made up stuff. And this had been reported. I reported much of the same story a year and a half ago when I revealed the paperwork related to Chaz having his license terminated and losing his job. Now, I'm going to do another video, not right now, regarding the investigation by BSAS, the Bureau of Substance Abuse Services. They did a full investigation, which I didn't have before, but that's also included in the filing on this lawsuit. I'm going to go through that, just not today. And that makes everything I just said very, very tame. This was low level. This is just the lawsuit. I'm going to go over the investigation, which gets into much more explicit detail. I will have to go very carefully through that investigation in order to keep myself out of trouble with YouTube, because the details, the sexually explicit details, are pretty bad and repeatedly bad. And I'm going to do that on another day. I need a break. So, this lawsuit is going forward. I don't know if it will be held. The federal court has 3 places in Massachusetts, one in Boston, one in Worcester, one in Western Mass. I believe everybody's out of Worcester County, so this may very well be heard in Worcester, although I don't know, or Boston. I don't know. They do different things. Sometimes they do not allow video recording, period, of any federal court proceeding. During COVID, they were allowing half the universe to attend on Zoom. Some of the hearings you can attend on Zoom. I could not secretly record or and I wouldn't try it because the federal court system is very serious about that. I will either attend in person when this really gets going, or I'll attend on Zoom. If it even goes to trial. Sometimes they could ask for summary judgment, or it could be they could settle outside of court. All kinds of things can happen, but this is a very nasty case, and I don't know how it's going to end up. With the defendants, I don't know. I'm sitting here speculating. Is Chaz facing a financial punishment here? And I don't know. He doesn't have deep pockets. I don't think he has a lot of money. God knows what he's doing for a living. I don't know. We'll see. Crozier House, Catholic Charities, they have deeper pockets. They have an insurance policy. If Chaz had, um, if he had malpractice insurance, a lot of places, a lot of people don't in his work don't carry malpractice insurance. And a lot of times clinicians, he wasn't a full-fledged clinician because he was not a master. He had a master's degree, but he didn't get licensed at that level. So a lot of people who are employed by companies or healthcare facilities, they don't get malpractice insurance because their employers are providing it. Not really. They're only defending themselves. That if you violate the rules, your employer isn't going to cover your bad acts. They're going to say you acted outside of the scope of your employment. Don't you think that won't happen? So you should, if you're a clinician, you should have malpractice insurance. One thing about all malpractice insurances policies for healthcare providers, every single one of them has a disclaimer. You are not covered for sexual misconduct. If you if you are accused of sexual misconduct, your malpractice insurance is not going to cover you. So even if he had malpractice insurance, they are not touching it. You're on your own, buddy. And that is when you have malpractice insurance, it's spelled out clearly. And whenever you renew your policy, you are asked, have you ever, not just during the terms of the policy, have you ever done this, whether or not you were charged with anything? Have you ever? And you sign your life away, and your ethics. Every healthcare professional, the ethics are spelled out, because people like Chaz come down the pike all the time. They violate the sexual misconduct rules, and they have licensing boards and professional organizations have to keep saying things louder that sexual contact or conduct with your people who are coming to you for help is completely wrong and will not be tolerated. You're going to lose your license. You're going to everything. And right now, Chaz can't have contact with patients. If he does, I don't know. Right now I can't understand how come he hasn't been charged with criminal activity. I don't know. I don't know what the statute of limitations is on him for his conduct at Crozier House. I really don't. But somewhere in here, there's got to be a crime that he can be charged with. So I don't know. I don't know what's coming. But this is the next phase. I anticipated that this was a possibility because of the level of conduct that I already knew he did. It's worse now because of what I've now seen. I have looked over the investigation that I will be sharing with you in the near future. And I've also, just reading the lawsuit, I know, and this is just what they're reporting. I'm sure there's more that we may never hear about. But God knows what happened, that people that didn't report things. But I'm going to go over the investigation with you at some point in the future. But just be prepared that it's going to be somewhat explicit. I'm going to do everything I can to stay within the rules of YouTube. But it will be a challenge. I'll have to change the wording as I read it, because they just won't allow me to say some of the things that I know are in the investigation. So, yeah. No pornography on here. And that's what it really is. So, anyways, thanks everybody for watching. Again, I did this as a recording. When I'm done here, I'm going to be doing it as a premiere. So it'll look live, but it's not. And I'm glad I didn't have to take a break during the recording of this video. I would just talk straight through, so I'm not going to have a voice now for a couple days. But thank you, everybody, for hanging in there. I'm going to get this out of there. Thanks for everybody for listening to this. Those of you that have seen it before, thanks for listening again. Now we know the lawsuit's coming. I'm pretty good at predicting these things. I predicted the Ethics Commission complaint to turn into a lawsuit. That happened. And now I've got this one. Yep, there'll be more. I don't know what makes people think that they can get away with stuff. But anyway, for those that never heard this before, I do have another video. At some point in the post-production of this video, I'll put a link in the description in this video of the original video I did in August of 2024. I think it was August. And that I did with Josh Abrams. If you're familiar with Josh Abrams, he's from Accountability for All. He and I collaborated on that video. I joined with him back a year and a half ago, because I had been doing a few videos. I had just started on YouTube. I was mostly recording public meetings. I wasn't getting into any really juicy stuff. I was having some challenges with town officials who didn't want to be recorded for some reason. I've never been a First Amendment auditor. I was just recording meetings, and which I'm still doing, just doing it on Zoom now. But but I was not the least bit prepared to do an expose like this, and I was petrified. And back then, Josh Abrams lived in Townsend, and he was able to help me out, and we did a video together, and that worked really well. Helped us both out, I guess. So anyway, I'm going to put a link to that video in the description at some point today, so that those of you that are just coming up on what is going on here, you can see that video that we did. But I will also, as I said, I'll be doing another video in the near future, in the next few days, sometime later in the week, to show you the investigation. Other videos that I'm working on, tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yes, tomorrow is a select board meeting in Townsend, and it's going to be another lengthy one. I'm hoping I'm going to be back in town. I have to leave town. I have an appointment. I should be back. I think the meeting starts at 3, so I should be back in time, barely, to get that one recorded. Or I'm going to live stream that one. I don't have to talk for an hour and a half, so I should be able to do that live stream. And then I have the other videos that I do owe you on things that I promised you. And there's a lot of other stuff going on in town. I apologize that I've been really sick since Christmas Eve, and I'm just getting to where I can do another video. So anyways, while you're here, before you go, if you can like the video, that would be really awesome. It'd be helpful with the algorithm. And also, I gotta see if I can get my little ticker going up there and show you, hey, hit the like button. And then if you're not already subscribed, consider subscribing to my channel. That also helps the algorithm. And when it helps the algorithm, what it does is helps the channel get seen by other people. Like if you like what you're seeing here, maybe some other people might like what you're seeing, and they might be interested. And what that does is help it show. My videos will show up when you go onto YouTube, and you see other videos in front of you when you first go onto YouTube. And whether you're on your phone or whether you're on your computer or wherever you are, and these other videos from other people that you're not subscribed to, they'll pop up. And when the more people are subscribed and like, and leave comments too. Don't forget to leave a comment. And those help make the video liked by other people, and it will makes it more available. It's a complicated algorithm. I'm no scientist on algorithms and SEO and all that other stuff. So I'm just depending on you to help me with that, get the word out. So okay, I'm going to end it here. I need more coffee. You know I like my coffee. Okay, so have a good day, and don't hesitate to rewind this video, even though it's going to be shown as a premiere. You could still rewind, I think. I don't know, but it's going to be up. So, all right. So, thanks again, everybody, and hopefully this was helpful and keeping you informed on what's going on around here. Thanks again.